Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you the next chapter in the story of Hoai Ca and Hung's family, where long-buried memories suddenly awaken in the most unexpected way. After a long disappearance, Hung's mother has returned. But this time, she doesn't come back with just an apology. She carries a secret that could once again turn Hoai Ca and Hung's peaceful life upside down. Will her return be an act of genuine remorse? Or is there something darker hiding behind it, a plan no one could have foreseen? Stay tuned until the end of today's video to uncover what happens next, where family ties, the past, and forgiveness collide once more. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to support Hoai Ca and Hung's journey. That afternoon, as the sun slowly dipped behind the golden tangerine trees, the air in the garden still carried the scent of damp soil and ripe fruit. Hoai Ca quietly gathered the last baskets of tangerines, her hands covered in dust, her shirt damp with sweat. She sighed softly, lifting her gaze toward the pale orange sky, the peaceful hue she always loved after a long day of work. The old iron gate creaked open, the sound of its hinges echoing through the still air. As she stepped into the yard, she saw Mrs. Hoai sitting on the front steps, her hands clasped together, her eyes heavy with thought. There was something different about her posture. Gone was the usual liveliness and energy. Instead, there was a quiet, troubled weight. A wave of unease brushed through Hoai Ca's chest. She set the basket down and called softly, "Mom, what's wrong?" Mrs. Hoai looked up, her eyes slightly red, her voice hoarse. "Ca, someone came looking for you today." Hoai Ca froze. Something in her mother's tone sent a chill down her spine. Who was it?" There was a brief silence. Mrs. Hoai seemed to be choosing her words carefully before replying, slowly. "It was Hung's mother." The words hit like thunder. The basket slipped from Hoai Ca's hands, a few tangerines rolling across the yard. The evening breeze lifted the hem of her shirt, but she stood motionless, as if turned to stone. "Did you say Hung's mother came here?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Yes," Mrs. Hoai nodded, her gaze still distant. "She came to see you, said she wanted to apologize. She even told me not to let Hung know. Said she regretted everything and wanted to meet you once." She paused, her expression shadowed with doubt. "But I'm not sure if she was sincere. There was something strange in her eyes. I can't explain it." Hoai Ca stood silent, her heartbeat racing wildly. Each word from her mother struck deep inside her chest. Old emotions rushed back, fear, confusion, pain. "I thought she would never come back," she murmured, her voice shaking. Mrs. Hoai stood and took her daughter's hand firmly. "Stay calm, dear. I'm here with you. No matter what she's planning, she can't hurt you anymore." Her mother's hand was warm, yet Hoai Ca's heart felt cold. In her mind, those old memories returned vividly, the woman's cold eyes, the harsh, angry words. A chill wind swept through from the fields, carrying the breath of dusk, and the small yard suddenly felt heavy, stifling, and full of shadows. The familiar sound of a motorbike echoed through the empty yard, sharp and hollow against the damp air that lingered after a light afternoon rain. The scent of wet earth, tangerine leaves, and smoke from a neighbor's kitchen blended together, creating an atmosphere both familiar and strangely unsettling. Hoai Ca and Mrs. Hoai looked toward the gate, where the last light of sunset shimmered through the rain-dappled leaves. A familiar figure appeared. It was Dew. He wore a dark jacket, his hands still dusty from the road, eyes filled with concern yet edged with caution. He turned off the engine, quickly parked his bike, and hurried inside. The moment he saw their worried faces, his voice dropped low. What happened? Mrs. Hoai exhaled heavily, her fingers twisting together as she spoke in a slow, weary tone. Hung's mother came back. The air seemed to freeze. Du stood still, his expression shifting from shock to guarded alertness. His brows furrowed, and his voice sank even lower. She came back? After all these years? Hoai Ca shrank slightly, glancing at him with trembling eyes. Her voice was barely more than a whisper. She told Mom she wanted to see me, but asked not to tell Hung. I don't understand why. I'm scared, Du. He stepped closer, his gaze softening as he placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Don't be afraid. If she truly wanted to make amends, she would have gone to Hung directly, not snuck around like this. Something doesn't feel right. A person who walked away like that doesn't just return for an apology. The evening breeze slipped through the tangerine branches, carrying the chill of fading rain. Raindrops splattered softly on the porch steps, breaking into tiny beads. The three of them sat down around the old bamboo table, its surface still damp with mist. The only sounds were the patter of rain and the low croak of frogs from the canal behind the house. Resting his elbow on the table, Du gazed toward the misty orchard, his tone calm but firm. For now, don't tell Hung anything. He's away on business, knowing this would only worry him. The best thing to do is stay quiet and watch what she does next. He turned to Hoai Ca, the girl now sitting with her head bowed, hands clutching the edge of her shirt, her face pale with unease. He could tell her fear wasn't just about the woman's return, but about something deeper, the dread that the fragile peace they had built could crumble at any moment. Mrs. Ha nodded slowly, her voice quiet but resolute. I agree. For the next few days, don't go out to the garden alone. Whether it's harvesting or going to the market, take me or Du with you. I won't feel at ease otherwise. Silence fell once more. Only the sound of steady rain and the faint rustle of bamboo filled the space. Hoai Ca nodded weakly, her voice barely audible beneath the rain. Yes. I understand. A cold gust swept through the porch, making the curtain tremble and the bamboo slats knock together with a dry rattle. The three of them sat there in silence, each lost in their own thoughts, each carrying the same nameless fear. It felt as though the past was slowly creeping back, quiet, unseen, but full of menace. That night, the small house lay silent in the middle of the tangerine orchard, wrapped in a thick, almost suffocating darkness. The wind whispered through the leaves, carrying the damp scent of soil and dew that seeped into the old wooden walls. Du lay in the outer room, his back against the cool wall, eyes half closed, but his mind refused to rest. The steady hum of insects outside blended with the soft patter of rain dripping from the roof, sounds both familiar and unnervingly tense. In that kind of silence, every noise seemed sharper, louder. Each gust of wind, each creak of wood pulled his attention like a trigger. It was nearly midnight. Too quiet. Unnaturally quiet. Du opened his eyes and took a slow breath. Through the window, a pale beam of moonlight filtered through the tangerine branches, scattering weak silver streaks across the wet ground. The stillness was so deep he could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his chest. Then suddenly, a small shadow flickered behind the fence. Just a fleeting shape, quick and smooth, like something moving with deliberate stealth. Du sprang up, breath quickening. His voice cut through the darkness, calm but firm. Who's there? No answer. The figure startled, shifted slightly, then turned and bolted. Footsteps crunched sharply on the sandy path, echoing in the quiet night. Du grabbed the flashlight hanging by the door, switched it on, and dashed outside. The dim yellow beam swept across rows of tangerine trees, wet trunks glistening under the dew. The cold wind lashed his face, but he kept running, eyes locked on the direction the intruder had gone. "Stop!" His shout rang across the empty yard. Only fading footsteps responded, growing fainter, until they disappeared beyond the orchard's edge. He quickened his pace, slipping through the muddy path, shoes caked in wet earth. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the chill. At the curve behind the garden, his light caught something on the ground. He froze, crouched down. A small folding knife lay half buried in the dirt, its blade smeared with fresh mud, glinting coldly under the moonlight. Tieu picked it up, turning it over in his hand. The metal felt icy against his skin. There was a dark stain along the edge, damp, recent. He tightened his grip, eyes narrowing. The night around him was silent again, the only sound the rustle of leaves in the wind. But deep inside, a sharp instinct flared. Whoever had been there wasn't just a passerby. This knife wasn't dropped. It was left behind. A warning. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the faintly trembling fence, before finally turning back toward the house. Each step he took was slow, heavy, carrying a weight he couldn't quite name. Somewhere in the darkness, he felt it, the sense that tonight was only the beginning, and something far more dangerous was already on its way. Tieu returned to the house, his shoes heavy with mud, his jacket soaked through with night dew. The oil lamp in the front room still flickered faintly, casting a wavering glow over his sweat-damp face, tense, alert, and silent. He pushed the door closed slowly, breath still uneven from the chase. Mrs. Ha and Hoai Ca immediately stood up. Neither of them had gone to bed. The sudden shout and hurried footsteps earlier had left them restless. "What happened, son?" Mrs. Ha asked, her voice tight with worry. Tieu placed the flashlight on the table and opened his hand. Resting in his palm was a small folding knife, the blade catching the dim light with a sharp metallic gleam. "Someone was lurking outside the gate," he said slowly, each word deliberate. "I tried to catch them, but they got away. They dropped this." The room fell into absolute silence. The sound of rain tapping on the roof grew louder, eerily distinct. For a few seconds, Hoai Ca didn't move. Then her voice trembled. "Could it be Hung's mother?" The question cut through the air like another knife. Tieu looked up, uncertainty flickering in his eyes, but before he could answer, Mrs. Ha shook her head. "We can't jump to conclusions," she said quietly, her tone heavy. "But one thing's certain, someone's watching us. Even if she has regrets, she wouldn't sneak around like that in the middle of the night." She sat down slowly, her gaze distant, as if piecing together scattered thoughts. Everything had happened too quickly, too strangely. No one spoke of sleep again. The little house that once felt peaceful was now filled only with the steady sound of rain on the porch and their tense, shallow breathing. A draft slipped through the cracks of the wooden door, making the flame of the oil lamp tremble, their shadows swaying restlessly against the wall. Hoai Ca curled up on the edge of the bed, her arms wrapped around her knees, her face pale, eyes clouded with fear. Tieu sat outside the doorway, gripping the knife tightly, his gaze fixed on the entrance. Moonlight spilled faintly through the window, glinting off the blade with a cold, silver sheen. All through the night, no one spoke. Only the soft rain fell, and the tangerine leaves rustled gently in the wind, while beneath that quiet, a heavy tension lingered, as though everyone inside could feel it, something was coming. By dawn, the rain had stopped. Tiny droplets still clung to the roof tiles, catching the last trace of moonlight as the sky slowly began to pale. A soft morning breeze drifted through the tangerine grove, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and brushing gently against the dew-soaked leaves. The air was so still that one could hear the rhythmic drip of water falling from the gutter onto the yard below. Inside the small house, Hoai Ca rested her head on Mrs. Ha's shoulder. She hadn't slept all night. Her eyes were swollen, red, and heavy with exhaustion and fear. Mrs. Ha gently stroked her daughter's hair without saying a word, only sighing from time to time, the kind of sigh that tried to hide its weight, so her child wouldn't worry more. At the doorway, Du stood silently. He had stayed awake through the night, eyes fixed on the darkened yard. The small folding knife was still in his hand, the metal glinting faintly under the pale morning light. His face was drawn, his eyes shadowed but sharp, the look of a man waiting for something inevitable. "If she truly regrets what she's done," he said, voice rough from the long night, "then why sneak around in the dark?" No one answered. The question hung in the thick, cold air, mixing with the mist that seemed to seep into their bones. Outside, the wind stirred the tangerine leaves, making them rustle softly, like whispers in the shadows. Then suddenly, a dog barked in the distance, sharp, echoing, and hoarse. The sound carried along the empty dirt road, bouncing between distant houses, filling the quiet dawn with an uneasy chill. It was the kind of sound that made your skin crawl, as if the world itself was warning of something unseen. Du tightened his grip on the knife, eyes locked toward the direction of the barking. Mrs. Ha reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder, silently urging him to stay calm. But none of them felt calm. Not anymore. Outside, the first light of morning spilled slowly across the yard, chasing away the darkness. But inside, their unease only deepened. Something unseen was still out there, lingering in the mist, waiting for its moment to appear. Stay tuned for the next episode, where the truth begins to surface. Du decides to track down the mysterious figure from the night. But when he returns, strange writing suddenly appears on Hoai Ca's wall. Who is secretly warning them, and why?
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người video tiếp theo về câu chuyện của Hoai Ca và Đô. Mọi người thân mến, thì như mọi người cũng đã biết thì Đô và Hoai Ca thì hiện tại thì hai người đã rất là dứt khoát và thẳng thắn trong chuyện tình cảm. Hoai Ca thì đã yêu Hùng, nhưng mà Đô thì anh vẫn luôn có trách nhiệm với Tony, là con của cô. Và sau một thời gian anh đi tù thì anh đã ra để chuộc lại lỗi lầm và cũng cố gắng để bảo vệ Hoai Ca. Vậy thì liệu mọi chuyện sẽ ra sao? Mời mọi người đón xem vào tập sau nhé. Bây giờ mình vừa edit xong. Chào tạm biệt mọi người.